Hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina and I am a psychic medium and Reiki master out of Calgary, Alberta. Today's episode is about the fear of psychics. Growing up in a very Catholic family, I was told never, ever, ever go to a psychic. My mother told me that they were pretty much evil. And so fast forward to my adult life, and it turns out that her own daughter is a psychic. My mother did always live her life surrounded with fear, and I would say that I really truly did as well. I was always afraid of the other side, but not the good side, if you know what I mean. We would go to church every Sunday, and I remember loving the actual building itself, but hated being in there with people that were dressed to the nines and in their Sunday best and trying to put on a facade for everyone, or at least that's how I felt. I never felt comfortable, and now I can understand why. I was picking up on everyone else's fears. So the woman sitting beside me that had had the affair, the gentleman that had beat his wife behind closed doors. I would pick up on those fears that they were experiencing because they were in there begging for forgiveness, hoping that they weren't going to be punished for their sins. And so you see, I was conditioned to be fearful myself from a very, very young age. I, of course, had heard about psychics and mediums, but I was told that they were evil, so I wasn't even drawn to ever go see one until I was so broken in my life that I believed my angels and spirit team guided me to get some help. A friend of mine had given me this psychic's phone number, and she had told me that she had helped her and her family so much. I was for sure intrigued, but I was really terrified to go because of what I grew up believing. I'm pretty sure I sat with that phone number for probably a couple weeks before I built up the confidence to phone her. But something really just almost like deep inside of me kept nudging me to go. So I finally built up the courage and made an appointment. So the day of the reading, I do remember being completely terrified. I remember that I couldn't eat. I was kind of pacing around. I was just so nervous. I even toyed with the idea of canceling probably about 10 times. But of course, I kept getting this strong gut feeling that I had to do this. So it was an evening appointment, and I remember that when I got in my car to go, I was shaking so badly. I'm, first of all, terrible with directions, and I was, also afraid that I was going to get lost. And I was really just out of sorts. And I remember she lived out of town on this beautiful property, but it was in the woods. So I somehow magically found her place with no trouble, which is surprising. But when I pulled up to her property, it was so dark outside. There were no other houses around, and I almost wanted to just turn around and go home. I started to have such really crazy thoughts, things like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? Is she going to tell me scary things that I don't want to know? Is she going to cast some sort of evil spell on me? Am I going to be punished for, actually going to see a psychic? I also had this crazy thought, will my husband be able to find me if something awful happens? This is the craziness that was happening in my head before I went in. But it took every single ounce of me to get out of my car and go to her doorstep. And the walk to the doorstep was so long, dark, and just really terrifying. So it was also pitch black around. There was barely any lights, but there was a small little porch light on. And so I went up to the door. My hands were shaking. I knocked on the door, and at first no one answered. And I thought, oh my God, I'm at the wrong place. And I started to have moments of panic. And then all of a sudden I heard her say, to come in. So I walked into her place, and she was on the phone actually finishing up a reading, and she told me to have a seat beside her at her kitchen table. I'm sure she could probably see it in my face, and not only see it, but feel it, that I was completely terrified. And I remember her putting her hand over mine and smiling at me, almost to calm me down. And once she was done on her phone call, she looked at me and just started like blurting out things about my life, like things that nobody would know. And I mean, she was just so accurate. I hadn't said a word to her. She didn't even give me an opportunity to talk, actually. She just said, this, and this, and this. And then next thing I know, I'm crying uncontrollably. So all of those like emotions that I had pretty much bottled up had just come pouring out. It was almost like a floodgate had opened. And then, she looked at me and she said, "You're carrying all this heavy, dark energy because you've been so fearful." And I just, again, said, "I don't even understand that, but I'm crying and I'm upset." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to do some stuff to clear you." And so she started using these like prayers, and it lasted like half an hour, really. And after she did the prayers, I did start to feel like a little bit of relief. And I don't know what she was doing at the time, but I would say that through those prayers and stuff, I felt like she had cleared off and cut off some of that fear that I was experiencing. And then she gave me some like really amazing and great advice about how I could live my best life. So she predicted what my next job would be because I wasn't working at the time, the exact amount of money that I was going to make, and all of it ended up coming true within, I think it was a few months. But one of the things that I loved about her was that she was so kind and loving. She wasn't scary at all. Like, just in fact, being in her presence, I felt a sense of security, peacefulness. I felt really just safe. And it was that night on my drive home that I say that my life really did change. I knew in my heart and soul that I was someday going to help mass amounts of people, just as she had helped me that night. I knew that I still had a lot of work to do. Like, I knew I had a lot of healing still to be done, but this was such a push in that right direction to get going and start healing my life and traumas and not sit in that negative energy. So you see, I really do understand how people can fear psychics. I get it. It's the fear of the unknown. So my Reiki master told me years ago that people would be really drawn to me because I was relatable, that I was just a mom, and that I wouldn't be feared. When most people think of psychics, they think of some, witchy woman with gypsy type clothes looking into some crystal ball. And I'll admit that I felt like that too years ago. But you see, I'm not scary. At least I don't think so. Every psychic medium reads differently. We all do. We all get our messages in our own unique way. And for me, the way that I work is to help people live their best lives. I see into the past. I help heal old wounds and trauma. And through spirit, they show me what the person needs to work on in the now. And then they guide me with ideas and insight as to their future. So I'm known to be blunt. Everybody that knows me knows that I say it the way it is. I do deliver the messages, though, in the most gentle possible way. So I'm not just, barking at someone. But the thing is, I don't sugarcoat anything with anybody, because if I sugarcoat it, they're not going to hear me properly. So I deliver the messages just exactly how I hear them. And I usually only have about an hour to an hour and a half with a person, and I waste no time getting the guidance and messages to them. I don't give scary messages or predictions or anything bad. I do know that there's other psychics out there that actually deliver them that way, but I'm not one of them. My job is to help everyone in their lives to live the greatest and best lives that they can. I choose to see only the things that are truly going to help people, like get back on track, heal what needs to be healed what's broken, and show them to dream big for their futures. Listen, there's a lot of good and bad psychics out there. Yeah, that's really true. But remember this, there's also good and bad doctors, good and bad lawyers, good and bad teachers, etc., etc. My thought is this: your spirit team will guide you to the psychic medium healer that is best for you. Your job is to listen to your intuition. Feel it. Like, is that person for you? Are you being drawn to a particular person for some reason? Someone handed you a business card and you feel like, hey, that's something that is sparking my interest. I think I might need to go see them. That's our intuition at its best. Someone is guiding you there. Almost all of my clients really are word of mouth, or so they think so. They will tell me that they had a conversation with a friend, etc. Like, oh, so-and-so was talking to me about a psychic and your name came up. And then all of a sudden I felt like, I should come see you. And really, I just sit back and kind of chuckle a little because I think, you know what? You think your friend guided you here? That's not how this works. Someone up above and on the other side knew that you needed some help, and that conversation came up because they were guiding you to me. Now, there's obviously so many psychics and mediums, especially in Calgary alone, but I always say that you're guided to the person that is best for you at that time in your life. There are some clients that I've been working with for the past, 6 years that come once every couple months or so to check in and get some guidance about their life. But, sometimes I see people only once, twice, 3 times. I feel it's important, if you're guided to go see other healers, other psychics, get different perspectives. We all do this differently. We all get the messages that you need for what you are going through at that time. And that particular time could be me. I could be the one that was chosen to give you that message for that time in your life. And then you can go forward, and maybe 6 months down the road, you're guided to someone else because they have a different message for you. So I always say, just trust what you're getting at all times. Like, if you have that knowing that, or that message of, hey, I think that person would be wonderful to go see, or something's pushing me to go, I do like to say, listen to it. Because even when they nudged me years ago, it was such a strong feeling. And I remember being intrigued by listening to my girlfriend, like, wow, that's really amazing that she said that, or, she told me all about it. And I thought it was fascinating. And I felt this deep knowing, and that I had to see her. And I mean, trust me, I didn't, it was a lot of money at the time too, because, at that point in my life, I think we were struggling a bit financially. And I remember thinking, how am I going to ask my husband for this money? Because I wasn't working, and not that he would ever say no. I just, there's that guilt again, mom guilt, right? Because I'm not working. Even though it's our money, I would feel guilty to go blow it on a psychic. But I went to him and I said, look, there's something in me. I can't explain it. I just need to go. And he said, I support you. You go do what you need to do. And I'm glad I did, because it changed everything about my path and the journey that I've been on. And look where I'm at today. I also want to mention this about psychics. We do see the now, the past, and sometimes, into the future. But I always say, especially about the future things, take that lightly, because you have free will. So I can say to someone, hey, I see this guy's going to come into your life around this time, or that, this month. And what happens is that people will go off and they start, looking for that person and trying to control when it's going to happen. And then all of a sudden the date rolls by and they say, well, you said that I was going to meet this person by this time frame. And I'll say, yes, but now with your fear, your subconscious fear that it wasn't going to happen, you pushed it even further aside. And I know this actually happened with a client of mine years ago, where I had told her that she was going to meet this particular gentleman. He looked like this. This is how tall he was. This is the color of his hair, the first initial, everything. And she went on a hunt, actually searching for him. It was, and I don't mean that she was doing it purposely. It was just, she had this excitement, like, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be in my life. This guy's coming into my life. But, that time frame had passed her by. It didn't happen. And she was just devastated and disappointed. I said, look, I still see him, but you gotta let go and just trust in the universe to bring this person to you. Let go. Stop trying to control, because when you control it, it's not going to happen. And, I'm sure at one point she may have been even upset. But as the time passed and she started, dating other people, and she really just almost forgot about it, because it was just like, that didn't happen. It's not going to come true. And lo and behold, a couple months later, she meets a guy that was the exact description of what I had said. And they've been happy now for a few years. So when we go to psychics, I think people have such a high expectation and they hang on to every single word that the person says. And I try to at least tell people, let go of control. Yes, we'll give you glimpses into the future, and I try not to read too far into the future for people, because I think then they hang on to it, and then that fear just builds and builds, and the next thing I know, they have pushed that manifestation aside because they have free will choices and they put it somewhere else. So if you do go to a psychic and they say, hey, a couple months from now you may get this job or whatever it is, just go about living your life without hanging on to that, if that makes sense. Just have it, as something, as a dream, perhaps, like when you dream big. Okay, I'm going to hope that I'm going to get that job, but don't put everything you have into that, because things can change. Any good psychic will tell you that we can see this stuff and we can predict quite a bit. However, you can change that path at any moment and go the other way. And next thing you know, you've fallen off your little journey there for a little bit, and then you can come back around to it. Or you may never get to that point. Does that make sense? I really hope it does. So today I want to leave you with this final thought. Maybe you have been scared to go see a psychic yourself. Perhaps you've felt that it's wrong in some way, like I did. Only you will know if it's meant for you. But I will say this. If you are being guided to go to someone, to a healer, to a medium, to a psychic, or an energy healer, I would say trust that nudge. And if it feels right, do it. If it doesn't, don't do it. That's our intuition at its best. And I really do hope that this gives you a little bit of insight as to why people fear psychics, and why I think that if you're guided to someone, there's no need to fear them, because someone up above sent you. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. And I hope that if you find a good psychic medium out there that you're being drawn to, go see them and let me know how it went. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the divine. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.